Hi everyone. I'm Sean Quinn. I'm a composer, an Australian composer now based in Berlin, originally from Melbourne, and I tend to associate a lot of my music with quite physical and timbral worlds that are more insinuated upon uh, earthy and disruptive sounds, unstable sounds, sounds that kind of don't work all the time, but then also sounds that have a lyrical quality that can be distorted in various ways, and highlighting that as an expressive outcome as opposed to trying to shy away from that.
So Sean, thank you for that. In terms of subject matter, on a macro perspective in your works and in your practice as a composer, what is your position?
I would say I mentioned physicality before, and that is very much on my mind when dealing with an instrument and with the player of that instrument. My music is both in a metaphysical sense and also a physical sense about this sort of fluid activity on top of an instrument or inside of an instrument, getting to the bottom of a particular sound and really stringing it out in multiple ways and finding, I guess, the potential of that sound, and then going beyond the potential sometimes and breaking that sound down and creating a new sound. And because there is this sort of evolutionary layering in a lot of music and with instruments, especially such as string instruments and brass instruments and wind instruments and any instrument really, it is about what is lying at the core and breaking down all of those layers. And I guess that's what my body of work is about at the moment.
Thank you for that. Sean, what is your notion of substance as a composer?
That's kind of an interesting question. What is substance, I guess, is where I would be going with that for myself. I think substance is a very personal thing. It can come down to what one considers to be composition in the first place. I mean, composition is such a broad field nowadays. You have anything from people doing text scores and graphic scores, big installation works, concert works, works that go across hybrid formats, interdisciplinary work. All of that has substance in its own way. And I think that there is a kind of an individual sense of substance sometimes, but then we also have a macro level of substance. And for me personally, the substance of my work comes down to that hybridity or the interdisciplinary space that I'm starting to try to explore more nowadays than I have. I mean, the concert space is great, but I guess the substance of it is waning a little bit in my practice. So that's what my notions of substance are.
Good, thank you. Sean, what is your notion of impact as a composer?
Again, it's a very kind of individual and personal thing. It depends on what impact you're trying to make, whether you're trying to make a political impact, whether you're trying to make just an artistic impact, whether you're doing it because you love it. But again, I would turn to myself and say, what is the impact that I'm trying to make? And I guess I'm just trying to add to the body of work that is the world of music. And impact is not meant to be, it shouldn't be at the forefront of everyone's mind, but it shouldn't not be on people's mind. It should always be present, but you shouldn't allow it to kind of impact how you see the impact itself. You shouldn't be trying to impact upon something that it doesn't exist for you, you know, a group of people or an entity. It just doesn't work like that. And unfortunately, humans are immovable like that. So we have to kind of focus on what the impact is for ourselves but also looking at, you know, what impact we are having and then continuing to make that impact, I think is the best way to look at it.
Thank you. Sean, what is your notion of responsibility as a composer?
Also broad, less personal. I think it's more of a group thing, but I have spoken to a few people about this, a number of my colleagues, about this idea of community that we talk about a lot, and community composition and composers inside of communities, and how that can be both a place of being very healthy and thriving, but then it can also kind of disintegrate down that individual sense of a composer's identity in many ways, and how they interact with the world as an individual with an individual voice. I'm all for community as long as it doesn't kind of disintegrate down into a commune where we all kind of do the same thing in the same way. We all go to the same institutions. We all learn from the same people. We all work with the same players. It becomes kind of pointless in many ways. And it means that the industry remains small. And I like that the industry has its communities, but I wish those communities were bigger. And I am hopefully going to be a part of the next step in that narrative of making the communities a lot bigger and a lot more broad, and also crossing boundaries, but knowing also when boundaries are healthy. Everything in moderation, everything that I say about community and all of that, I think community is healthy as long as it's, as long as it keeps, as long as one retains one's own self inside of that community. Know that you belong somewhere, but know that you are allowed to be different. You are allowed to think differently to everyone else and do things differently. It doesn't have to be like everyone else. So yeah.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you so much for your time today, and looking forward.